It's day 2 of the NFL Combine, and the running backs took center stage today. Some very intriguing names that we had a chance to hear from. And Kyle's still here. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake and Kyle back together again, same room still, and now it's day 2 of the NFL Combine, where this morning we had a chance to hear from the running backs. Now, the offensive linemen were there also, but...
And the kickers.
And the kicker. But you know what? Not a whole lot of people care.
Hashtag kickers matter.
Not a lot of people care about kickers. And we're not going to spend any time on kickers or offensive linemen right now. We will break them down maybe a little bit more once we get into more mock drafts here early in the offseason. But for right now, the focus is on running backs. And there were some big names out there this morning. And that's what we're going to get into today. We got some great clips for you, some great sound bites. So make sure you stay tuned. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Okie dokie, that just happened. First guy up we're going to talk about. Now, this is probably the consensus number one running back for a lot of people throughout the NFL. It's J.K. Dobbins of Ohio State. He was one of the first guys to take the podium for the running backs this morning. He had some pretty good sound bites, what we're going to get to here in a second. But what is your take on J.K. Dobbins?
J.K., I mean, he's my running back one right now. I've got him as my running back one. I think he does a lot of things really, really well. But I think the reason that he's my running back one right now is because I think he has the most upside. Now, I have like tier one of running backs, okay? And it's Swift, it's Taylor, it's Dobbins. And we'll talk about it a little bit more as we get into those other two. But Dobbins, for me, just has the highest upside, I believe.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing, keep in mind, he's not 100% healthy right now. He's still dealing with a high ankle sprain. We saw that last game of the season against Clemson. He's not 100%. When he was asked if he was going to compete in all of the NFL Combine drills, his answer was, we'll see. I mean, it's not even for sure. However, he did stress that if I do not do these drills today or this week, I will do them at my pro day. So he's not 100%. But he was swarmed by media early this morning. You could tell the crowd really picked up once he took the stage. Now, one of the sound clips we have here that really kind of caught my attention. He was asked, what does he think is one of his best traits as a running back? What does he do really, really well? And this is what he had to say.
Definitely my vision. I think I have vision that's out of this world. It's definitely a God-given talent, so I think that's the best thing about my game.
I mean, out of this world vision. He said out of this world vision. Like he's an Avenger or something.
No.
That's a little much. He took it a little far. Now, vision is obviously something he definitely excels at. Out of this world vision, unless he can see through people, which is a possibility, it's something that really benefits his game. But I think he kind of over-exaggerated a hair.
Yeah, and that's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to be talking himself up. He's supposed to be giving his elevator pitch right now. So that's absolutely okay. One thing I like to see from the running backs and really any position is when they talk about what they do well, I like to hear what they think they need to do better at. It's like a job interview. What's something that you can get better at. With J.K. Dobbins, he does so many things so well, and that's why these running backs are so close together. You have to really pick apart where can they get better. And pass protection is one area that I think he can get a little bit better, but the other is route running. And if you notice watching his film, a lot of the yards that he picks up through the air are broken plays or dump off passes. They're not really designed routes for Dobbins. So got to see him, really learn a little bit more of that route tree for running backs to get to that next level here at the NFL level and really produce out of the backfield, both carrying the ball and catching it.
Yeah, 100%. And another question that came up is a lot of people kind of are going back and forth between him and Jonathan Taylor. They even went so far as to call it a rivalry. What does he feel about his rivalry with Jonathan Taylor? And his response to this question was amazing. I had to include it in the video. I posted it on Twitter. A lot of these videos are also on Twitter if you follow us. But this was his response to his rivalry with Jonathan Taylor.
Because he plays on a different team than me. He's not on defense, so I'm not necessarily going against him, but if there's a rivalry, I think I won the better of that because we beat them every time we play them.
I don't know, Kyle. Kind of sounds like he took a little bit of a shot.
Just a little one. Just a small shot.
Just a tiny little gut punch there. Just tiny, but it's good to see that side of things every once in a while from these young kids. So many times they'll go up there, they'll give you their canned answers, their canned responses that they've been trained to say. It's good to see this side of it. It actually adds a different element to these type of interviews. But just like every other running back that we're going to talk about today and that you'll hear about this entire preseason. It all really depends where they land. If their landing spot and the opportunity they get, that's really going to determine how their young career takes off.
Yeah, 100%. We have an oversaturated running back market this year. We have a lot of free agents that can still be valuable free agents. It's not like they're over the hill, done with their careers. We have a lot of younger guys still. We have a really good incoming running back class. And quite honestly, we have a lot of really good running backs in the league already. So, for one of these running backs to come in and really, become, a home run hitter right away or one of the top backs in the league, they're going to have to fall into the perfect situation that's willing to use them like a top back.
Yep, 100%. Now, next up on our list is a guy whose last name really fits the bill as a running back. Mm-hmm. It's Swift. It's DeAndre Swift, and you had a chance to catch up with him and sit there with his interview. What was your takeaways from Swift today?
Yeah, the one question that he got almost right off the bat was, what happens after you touch the football? And I thought that was a good question because I didn't hear a lot of people ask a question like that. And his response was great in terms of, after he gets a football in his hands, what is he doing?
Just not being stopped. Depending on the defense's back's leverage, the way he's coming at me, it's just a lot of stuff that go into it. But now I can really talk about it. When I'm in the play, I don't know what's going on, but to make people miss and try to score. But it's just a lot of different stuff going off his leverage, the way he's attacking me and stuff like that.
It's always good to hear, especially young players like this, really break down what's happening in their mind, especially in the heat of the moment. And he even makes a comment. He's like, I don't really think about it when it's happening, but when I sit here and talk to you all, I can kind of break it down for you. So that's good. That's some self-awareness there on what's going on around him. And with DeAndre Swift, the one thing about him, he's a safe runner. He has a nose for the first down marker. He has a nose for what he's going to do. Sometimes I can take away from some of the big playability that he might have. Every once in a while, if you watch the tape, you might see some holes where, if he were, to cut left or if he were to hit a different hole, there's a lot more yardage there. He tends to follow the blocks exactly to the T, follow the play exactly to the T, which is great. That's what you want. But again, sometimes it can limit his upside.
Yeah, exactly. It's those one-offs. It's that factor that you'll see with the likes of a Saquon Barkley. If a play breaks down and doesn't quite go, that he can make something happen. And that's going to have to be an area that he definitely tries to work on going forward. And once again, I'm not going to keep saying the same thing, but it's about landing spot. Are we going to put this guy in a position in the NFL behind a horrible offensive line on a team that's constantly trailing? He's not going to get a chance. There's so many different factors out there. It's something to pay attention to here as we head into the draft. As far as DeAndre Swift goes, after DeAndre Swift, it picked back up again because then Jonathan Taylor took the podium. And this guy, to be completely honest, he is a great interview. He seems like a great kid. He's very well spoken. He was funny. He was excited to be up there. He didn't sound nervous whatsoever. And there are a few people out there that really prefer Jonathan Taylor to a J.K. Dobbins. And to be completely honest, I'm not going to base it solely off an interview, but he maybe took another tick up my board, and I don't have an issue with Jonathan Taylor over J.K. Dobbins right now because Dobbins isn't 100% healthy. Once Dobbins is 100% healthy, then all of a sudden the argument kind of picks back up. But if you're asking me today, Jonathan Taylor is my running back one until I see that health from Dobbins. Now, a lot of people wanted to know about his wear and tear. This guy has been put through the ringer at
968 touches in 3 seasons at Wisconsin.
He averaged 2,000 yards in 3 straight years. He had 50 touchdowns combined in 3 years on the ground.
Yeah.
This guy is crazy production. And that was one of the very first questions he knew he was going to hear this morning is, come on, you've had all this work. You've taken all these hits. How much tread is left on your tires? And this is how he addressed that question.
Describe, your routine that lets you do 900 carries over 3 years?
So one of the biggest things is, especially after a game, after speaking with Melvin Gordon and Corey Clement, one of the biggest things after the game, making sure that I'm stretching, making sure that I'm getting in the cold tub. I'm usually the last guy in the media room. We have a room at the end of the game where all the media is at, and it's kind of become a custom now that I'm the last guy just because I have to make sure I get my recovery in after games to, ensure I'm maximizing my recovery.
So he's aware of it. He understands, hey, I know I took a beating, but, I prepared for that. And the coaching staff, prepared me for that, put him in a great situation. And leading into his, draft season, he's completely healthy. Yeah, he's got a lot of wear and tear. He's taken a lot of hits, but he doesn't have any nagging injuries. And that's one thing to really kind of take away. Next up, his speed was addressed. He's a bigger back. He's definitely somebody who may not be given enough credit for the type of speed. He says he wants to run inside the 4.4s. And when he was asked about his speed or his lack thereof, this is the response he gave about that.
Yeah, so I think that's due to my track background, being able to have that long distance speed and being able to hold it. Oh, no, I really don't feel disrespected just because on film, usually when a bigger guy is fast, it kind of looks like he's really smooth. It doesn't look like he's moving as fast, which makes sense in a deal, and you look at the film, I'm running away from people.
All right, so I mean, he's saying all the right things here. He's confident in himself. He's out to prove people that, hey, you know what? I may not be classified as a speed back, but I'm about to surprise some people. I'm about to run away from some people. So as I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this interview and I'm listening to him speak, I'm kind of thinking to myself, who does he kind of remind me of? What kind of running back can we equate this to? Everybody wants to do these comparisons. And then the question was asked, growing up, what running back did you kind of model your game after? And this was his response to that question right here.
Someone that reminds you of yourself?
So growing up, my favorite running back was Arian Foster, hence the reason why I got 23. And, I just think he was so smooth for his size in and out of his cut. So that's just some guy I tried to model my game after.
So Arian Foster is a pretty decent comp. I mean, I think actually he has the opportunity to be faster than Arian Foster. He's quicker than Arian Foster, but the same, hard style of running. The healthy Arian Foster.
Yeah, let's hope he lasts longer than Arian Foster. That's the big thing.
That's the biggest thing right there is the healthy version of Arian Foster was dominant. This is a guy, though, that I think is going to be ready day one. He fits so many different types of schemes. Regardless of where he goes, as long as he gets the opportunity, he's going to have the ability to put up some decent numbers as a rookie.
And that's why these top three running backs are so close right now. With a Swift and a Dobbins, they have a little bit higher upside, a little higher ceiling right now to me than what Taylor does. And I love Taylor. He was my running back one for the longest time. Dobbins kind of jumped him here in the last couple of months. But with Taylor, like you said, you can basically plug and play him in any scheme, any team, and he can be a good running back. Now, is he going to be a great running back? Who knows? But he can be safe. He can get you 1,000 yards, some touchdowns, be reliable, dependable. Maybe he's not going to be a top 10 running back, but it doesn't matter where he goes, he's going to be good. With Dobbins and Swift, they're going to have to find the right scheme and the right coach that's going to open them up in space, put them in positions to really excel. And that's why with those two, again, a little bit higher ceiling, but maybe the floor is a little bit lower because they're a little bit more dependent on where they land than what I think Taylor is going to end up being.
Yeah, absolutely. And two teams that popped up a lot during both these interviews, especially for Dobbins and Taylor, Miami and Atlanta were two places that came up a lot when these two guys were being asked questions. So definitely something to pay attention to here over the next coming weeks. Now, next up, Cam Akers is going to be the next running back we're going to be discussing here.
And he's kind of the first one in the second tier for us.
Yeah, he's top of tier 2.
Which at one point in time, he was basically top of tier 1.
Yes.
So
he's trending down.
Yeah.
I guess you could say right now. And with Dobbins' injury, I hate to even call it an injury. It was a high ankle sprain. He's going to be back and be just fine. But Cam Akers has taken a hit, and now we have him here as the fourth guy. And what was your takeaway from Cam here today?
So and I loved Cam Akers while he was at FSU. And I think one of the issues that we're kind of getting wrapped up right now with Cam Akers is kind of his production in his final season. It's recency bias, right? That's the way this community is, whether it be just normal football, fantasy football. It doesn't matter. If you enjoy football, really sports in any capacity, what have you done for me lately? I guess society as a whole, sometimes you could say that too. But anyway,
I say that to you all the time.
This is true. So recency bias. So, you see kind of that last season of Akers and you're a little bit underwhelmed, and that's sticking in a lot of minds right now. And the one thing that concerns me was that the offensive line was so bad at FSU last year that it caused Cam Akers to fall into some bad habits. And with a young player that gets hit a lot, that struggles to produce maybe in that last season, doesn't meet those expectations, they go into the league and they have some of those bad habits because they feel like they have to make everything happen themselves. Now, he was asked about that, and he gave a pretty good answer in return because he wasn't throwing anybody under the bus.
Well, I'll never be the one to say my offensive line was shaky or whatever, everybody else say, but if it's any deficit in my game, I take full responsibility,
So yeah, with Cam Akers, I mean, my biggest concern right now is just bad habits that he may have formed that last year in Florida State. Whatever team drafts him, I think they're going to have to work with him a little bit to get him confident in himself and his abilities again, but also get him confident in his teammates and get him following those blocking schemes and actually going with that and not feeling like he has to improvise a whole lot.
And I think one of the biggest things as far as his landing spot is he needs to be able to go to a team that utilizes the running game efficiently. Yeah. The last thing you want to have is a running back who's going to come into the league who needs some of this work to fall to a place like Tampa Bay. It's already an abyss of running backs. You have hashtag say no to Rojo, who still sucks at football at times. You got, Dare Ogunbala Walla Walla Way, or whatever you want to say his name, and you got Peyton Barman. It's just a mess there. That's not the kind of situation he needs to go to.
Right.
He needs to go to an established running team and start reestablishing some of those good habits. So that's definitely something to look forward to him.
Now, if he goes to Tampa Bay, he could definitely take the job. But again, not a great offensive line. What's going to happen at quarterback? There's too many moving parts.
Yep, absolutely. Next up, this is somebody who had some pretty decent comments through the day and started to show up a lot on social media. Back half of the morning. It's Clyde Edwards-Helaire of LSU. Mm-hmm. Now, neither one of us had a chance to sit there, with him during his interview while we were at some of these other places, but still some good takeaways for him for the day.
Yeah, and, with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, again, didn't get a chance to, get into that interview too much with him, but definitely took a big look at him. He doesn't get the hype that these other guys do because he's not as flashy. Okay, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. He's got good vision. He's a good runner. The one thing that he lacks a little bit is that top end speed at the second level. So maybe he's not going to pull away from as many people. He's and this is kind of an odd one too. And I read it actually right before we started recording. Was that a team this week actually asked him to work out as a wide receiver. So that speaks to a little bit of his athleticism as well and what he does as a route runner. So even though maybe he didn't showcase a lot of that at LSU, teams see that with him. And I definitely think that that's something that's going to continue to grow with him, something we need to take a look at that this week with on-field workouts, with his pro day. But I definitely think that he at some point could become possibly that RB4 in this draft.
Yeah, and I think he kind of is going to always be, and I don't want to say always, but at least to start his career, he's going to have to be that guy that gets volume to get production. He's not going to be able to do a lot with a little. I don't see that. He's going to have to get that 15 touches a game. If he can find the right situation, could be in for a decent year. But once again, all about landing spot. Last guy we're going to talk about, and his name is fun to say, and it's Ino
Benjamin.
Ino Benjamin is definitely a name that a lot of people have been talking about here over the past couple weeks.
Yeah, and I really liked his interview. I enjoyed it a lot because of how he spoke about the game. This first clip here was kind of, what could separate you from the other running backs? And he gave an answer that I didn't hear any of the other running backs give.
I would say I'm a true student of the game. Everyone here kind of has the same kind of characteristics. It's the little things that separates you. And I feel like my knowledge on the game, I feel like my film study habits are little things that help me take advantage of opponents on the field.
So I think that's really underrated. Here at the Combine, it's focused so much on what's going on the field, your athletic traits and things like that we get a little bit away from what do players do off the field that make them so successful. And Ino Benjamin said it right there. My love of the game, my student of the game. He even talked about how, in this next clip you hear it, how he will go into the offensive line room and he'll watch tape with them because it was asked, what's your favorite scheme to run in, different things like that. And again, another great answer from him here.
I like gap scheme, but I'm sort of liking more just inside zone as well. Like I said, oftentimes I was able to go in the offensive line room and study. So just being able to know the blocking scheme before and have pre-snap reads of knowing where the ball could hit, and if this is taken away, having a backup plan for that as well.
Outside, inside zone and gap can be pretty similar. So is that running in between the tackles?
Yeah, I love running in between the tackles because I understand the blocking scheme, and I feel like my body frame is able to sneak by, and defenders are going to easily identify me in the backfield, and so I'm able to do things that people wouldn't notice.
So he's definitely a smart kid. He's a really smart football player. He's got a high football IQ. One of the concerns about him coming into this week was going to be his size. Now, a lot of outlets had him under 200 pounds. So this was a guy that was coming in at like 5'8", 195. So again, not a very big guy, and that was concerning a lot of people. However, he weighed in at 207. Now, again, new with the combine this year, if you don't know it, not only do you weigh in at the beginning of the combine, but you weigh in again before your on-field activity. So he's going to weigh in again before he runs the 40-yard dash. So we'll see what that volume or what that weight looks like there. But he definitely looks like he's on the way. Even when he came out with the other running backs, he looked solid. He looked as big as the other running backs when they were all walking out together. So I definitely think he is also a guy that after these workouts, pro days, interviews with some teams, he's another guy that could end up, if he lands in a good spot, could provide some value for a team right away.
Yeah, and he may end up going somewhere a little bit, later in the draft to where he's not going to get the lion's share of the workload week 1 of the NFL season. He's going to have to work his way into getting more touches. But the way that you referenced how he spent time in the offensive line room, I think one of the biggest traits that makes a running back successful in the NFL is to not only understand what he's supposed to be doing, but what is everybody else supposed to be doing? What are all the offensive linemen supposed to be doing? Where is who is the tight end blocking? Understand other positions, and that's where the success is going to come from the running back spot.
And he also talked about, too, a question that came up was about his performance in the classroom. And this was a guy that was taking anywhere between 15 and 18 hours per semester at a time. So definitely very high IQ kid. He even talked about saying, loved being in the classroom. So he's going to be a guy that's going to study a whole lot. And just one quick other name just to throw out, just in case anybody asks about him. And he's kind of like the top of tier 3. It's Zach Moss from Utah. Still diving in on him a little bit. Again, kind of like Taylor with a really high volume of workload over the course of his career. But unlike Taylor, he's had a ton of injuries, and that's really concerning for him. He's not nearly as athletic as some of these other guys. So he's a guy that right now is kind of the top of tier 3 for us. He's below all these other running backs. Don't have a whole lot of other insight on him right now, but I know the name is going to come up, so I wanted to toss it out there just in case anyone started asking the question.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll be somebody that we're paying close attention to here over the next few months, but that's a quick breakdown of the majority of the bigger name running backs who we had a chance to catch up with today. There's obviously others out there, but we want to make sure we hit some of these names that you're going to be hearing a lot about over the next few weeks. Now, it's been fun to go out there. It's been fun to go out there and listen to these interviews and ask these questions, post these videos. Now, that is what's most important. We come in here and at the end of the day, and we'll give you guys the recap of the day, but follow us on Twitter. Both of our Twitter handles are down below in the description. We're posting this stuff as it's coming out of their mouth. So, you're going to be getting it, before anybody else. So make sure you follow us on Twitter, subscribe here on YouTube, and you're going to get all types of information here over the coming months. We're going to be doing this same type of thing. We're going to be going to the draft. Me and Kyle, we're going to be in the same room again because we're going to be in Las Vegas at the draft in April. Looking forward to that and just adding, more and more tools to our tool belt, Kyle.
I don't have a response.
You have no response for that? You don't even have a tool belt.
I'm going to get a tool belt now. I don't. I have a tool box. Okay. I have a tool belt.
Oh.
I'm not.
He's wearing a tool belt in Vegas. Y'all heard it here first. Hey, you guys have a great rest of your week. We appreciate all of the support, and we'll talk to you guys later.